I never thought my past would follow me so loudly into the present, but when I was subpoenaed to testify in my estranged parents' financial fraud case, I knew it was time to bring every buried document and every truth I had survived into the light. I didn't speak with emotion, I spoke with facts, emails, blocked messages, unopened letters, school reports where no one ever came to pick me up. The judge admitted my testimony shattered their credibility. My name, once used to prop up their image, was now the very thing that exposed the illusion they had built. A few days later, I got a call from a social worker handling my half-sister's case. Her temporary placement was running out, and they wanted to know if I could step in. Not forever, just to keep her from the system. I didn't rush to say no, but I didn't say yes either. Instead, I brought it to therapy, then to the three people I trust most: my counselor, the friend's mother who took me in one winter, and the writing professor who first told me my story mattered. They all said the same thing: don't take on guilt dressed as duty. I listened. I was barely standing on my own, fresh out of school, working contract hours, writing when I could, and I wasn't about to step into a role I hadn't been given the chance to grow into. I told the social worker the truth gently, and she understood. Around that time, my agent asked for deeper revisions to the manuscript, less court filings, more me. So I dug into the early pain, the locked dorms over winter break, the staff lounge I slept in so I wouldn't feel so alone. Somewhere between chapters, I was invited onto a podcast that focused on trauma-informed education. This time, I used my real name. No masks. It didn't feel like exposure. It felt like service. Soon after, a nonprofit asked me to speak at their annual gala. I hesitated, but I showed up. And after the speech, a retired teacher from my old boarding school approached me. She had kept the letters, the ones she sent to my parents, the ones that were returned, unopened. She sent me scans of every page. They were proof, not of what I felt, but of what happened. I added them to the manuscript, not to accuse, just to ensure no child is ever told they imagined their pain. Not long after, a caseworker emailed me. My half-sister wanted to meet, just once, supervised, no contact unless I allowed it. She was of age, had finished therapy, and was asking on her own terms. I agreed under conditions. We met in a youth advocacy center. She had questions, and I gave her facts about the years I was gone, the day I found her name by accident, and the silence that wasn't her fault. We didn't hug, we didn't promise, but we agreed to write, letters only. That same week, my manuscript was accepted for publication. The memoir wouldn't be a story about abandonment. It would be about surviving the failure of systems, about reclaiming a name no longer attached to someone else's paperwork. I posed for photos with a school blazer draped over a chair. I declined media spots that wanted drama and asked for every promotional event to include mental health resources. When my old school reached out to feature me in their alumni newsletter, I wrote back, "You don't get to celebrate a success you ignored." Days later, a handwritten letter arrived. No name, just deflection and regret woven between excuses. I logged it with my lawyer. I was done having conversations that didn't start with truth. As the memoir neared release, I scrubbed my online presence, locked my profiles, and sent an anonymous donation to support housing for kids aging out of care. I didn't post about it. I just did it. Then I began weekend writing workshops at the library, safe spaces where foster kids could write fiction, poetry, anything they wanted. No one had to read aloud. Most didn't, but they came back. When the memoir launched, it was quiet but steady. Reviews called it grounded, clear-eyed, powerful for what it didn't say. I gave a national radio interview, and when the host asked what I'd say to my parents if they were listening, I replied simply, "Nothing needs to be said anymore." I joined a limited author tour, each event focused on broken systems and survival. In Philadelphia, after a talk, a woman handed me a folded note. No name, just words written in soft, deliberate script. "I read your book in foster care. I always wondered if I was invisible. Now I know I wasn't. Thank you." It was from my half-sister. I slipped it into my wallet next to my old student ID, not for closure, but as proof that truth moves even when family doesn't. Not long after, my closest friends, and the woman who once offered me a blanket threw a surprise book party. The cake looked like a boarding school, but every door was open. They handed me a certificate that read, "You showed up. That's enough." I kept it. Then came the email from a documentary director. He wanted to adapt the book. I said I'd only consider it with full creative control, and now it's in early talks. I started seeing someone too. No confessions up front, just quiet, shared meals and long walks. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to bleed to be understood. Later, a legislative group working on guardianship reform invited me to speak. I wrote a statement full of timelines and redacted records. No stories, just this. Kids shouldn't disappear between forms. We don't need to find them later if we don't lose them early. When I finished, the room stood. That summer, I received a photo in the mail, my half-sister, holding a diploma, smiling. I framed it beside mine, anything. A few weeks later, I filed the final paperwork to remove my parents from every legal tie to my name. They could never list me again. That fall, I traveled overseas for the first time. I passed by one of Europe's oldest boarding schools. Kids were running, dragging suitcases, laughing.